Good afternoon to respected faculties, teachers, organizing conference chairs, and all my dear friends. Very welcome to the first international conference on smart energy and advancement in power technologies, organized by National Institute of Technology, Jamshedpur. My topic for the presentation is analysis of microgrid and protection schemes, a review. I am the presenting author of the research paper, and the co-authors are Dr. Omveer Singh and Dr. M. A. Ansari. They are my guide and co-guide in PhD research work. So as we all know that now coming on to the next slide, there is the content slide. The contents include introduction, classification of microgrid, characteristics of the and advantages of microgrid, issues and causes and remedies related to microgrid, microgrid protection, limitations and future scope, and finally the conclusion. Moving on to the next slide, constitute the introduction. The review paper, my review paper represents the author's review paper presents a detailed analysis and review of microgrid and factors on which development of protection algorithms for microgrid interface renewable energy sources depends. The review focuses on every aspect of the microgrid. It includes the factor affecting the protection of microgrid under different conditions. This is done after the investigation and literature review of the various protection schemes currently in effect and are being implemented at various stages in a microgrid. To understand the microgrid protection schemes, understanding the recent protection challenges associated with the AC microgrids with inverter interfaced RES R should be investigated thoroughly. The research paper includes microgrid classifications, advantages of microgrid characteristics, microgrid protection, limitations, and major concern of the protections for the situation when microgrid switches from grid connected to island mode of operation. Exploration of the selected protection solutions and algorithms that would alter the regulation protection methods are needed to be critically analyzed to achieve effective conclusions and implementable algorithms. Many times we need a single power plant, but that does not provide us the necessary sufficient amount of electricity desired by load of consumers. This problem was solved by integrating the different power plants energy supply with the power grid, yet the problem of reaching the energy remained the same. Later on, to resolve the issue, concept of island microgrid was introduced. Islanded microgrid is a self-sustained microgrid which is not connected to main power grid. It has its own source of energy. They are mostly renewable energy sources like wind or solar. Yet another problem figured was the non-availability of sufficient amount of energy from limited amount of renewable energy power plants. This problem was overcome by integrating a diesel generator along with renewable energy sources so that sufficient amount of energy can be maintained in the microgrid. Microgrid is independent from grid's power supply because of the availability of various alternate supply from different sources of microgrid. Energy produced by the PV panel, wind by produced by the wind and diesel generator is enough for fulfilling the desired necessity of users connected to the microgrid. Also, hybrid energy storage systems is applied instead of battery energy storage system to enhance the reliability of islanded microgrid by performing sensitivity analysis. The various type of model used throughout the system includes the load availability evolution model, the Borgonov model, the Krejcik model, etc. The special behavior of microgrids have shown the urge to make the changes to the regular protection strategies implemented in the distribution network. Distributed energy resources are interfaced with the help of power electronic equipment, usually produced by direction fault current. This leads to the decrease in the capacity of fault current, leading to severe protection sensitivity failure and disruption in the fault detection. It is highly preferential that the protection scheme have the feature to adapt itself to new conditions arise due to islanding and sectionalization after implementation of dynamic topologies. Now moving on to the next slide. The next slide includes the classification of microgrid. There are three kinds of microgrids basically: the residential microgrid, remote microgrid, and the mobile microgrid. The residential microgrid includes the many microgrids that may include campuses of school, colleges, universities, various communities. The major concern and the problem by this kind of microgrid is caused by the impulse to voltage of grid and its frequency at the time of transmitting the renewable energy generated back to main grid while building a residential microgrid. Other problems associated with residential microgrid are frequent transition between grid connected mode and islanded mode. Reliability and stability of the system is also not ensured. The remote microgrid is very much helpful in rural areas where we do not have a main supply from the grid directly connected. So the mobile microgrid is used when we have like frequent changing of the location, specifically for the navy ships, cargo ships, maintenance ships, defense sales, or military places where we have to change the equipments, change the places and charge the battery, or use the various type of technological equipments time to time, so we can use the mobile microgrid to generate the renewable energy sources. Moving on to the next slide, include the my next slide include the advantages. The advantages are being discussed here. The next slide of my presentation. Now moving on to the next slide, cause includes issues, causes and remedies related to the microgrid. There are various problems and issues like fault on grid side, load switching, and like circuit breaker switching, inappropriate working of the circuit breaker, and during the fault current the peak value goes to the 2 times. So it may occur due to the poor standardization, improper relay or interoperability, unwanted fluctuations, and there are many more reasons for the issues. There are many reasons for that. There are many causes for these issues includes I have already told you, like failure of the circuit breaker. The reasons for these problems are the increased complexity of microgrid and connection of multiple independent distributed energy sources to fulfill the requirement of the loads associated with microgrids. It basically take the supply from the main grid, but we have like a lot of remedies for the same which are introduced in my next slide. So moving on to the next slide, the microgrid protection is very important. For that purpose we have different type of protection schemes, like protection using communication, voltage based protection, adaptive protection, differential protection, overcurrent protection, distance protection, multi-agent protection. The working of these protection schemes have been properly analyzed and thoroughly after investigation have been mentioned in the research paper. Moving on to the next slide, limitations and the future scope. For every associated microgrid protection scheme we have some set limitations, and there are always the future scope to avoid those limitations. The protection using communication has like CT errors, mismatches, cost of relays has increased due to the switching of the devices, cyber attacks. Voltage based protection includes it does not consider HIF, symmetrical fault, single phase tripping, and so on. We can go on to the kind of limitations, and any reviewer, any other author who wants to review our work can just go through the limitations and the future scope. Moving on to the next slide, due to the time constraint I cannot just explain all of them. So the next slide contains the conclusion of my research work. I would like to conclude that the various energy sources, renewable energy sources, have been introduced like solar and wind in the recent times, and they have been used and integrated with the microgrid. But along with the development of the microgrid there have been lots of issues. They have been solved with the help of the many remedies and the protection strategies that has been taken to avoid any kind of fault issues developed with the islanded or grid connected mode. But with the advancement of the technology we must look for the other solutions as well and other alternative sources of energy as well. So I would like to conclude that development of protection algorithm for microgrids is needed to be developed, which can help in overcoming the recent issues and problems in the protection of microgrid interface with renewable energy sources via inverter. Next slide. These are my references, and I would like to conclude with this last slide. Thank you everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me to present the screen. Thank you.